Friday. I'm all about it. Hope you are too. Thanks for the download. Thanks for the listen. This is where you find your good buddy Ed at WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com. And yes, I am available to speak around the country, and I can't wait to do that. I got a gig coming up on October 1st, AFL-CIO in Youngstown, Ohio. And if you want me in your neck of the woods or on your stage to rev up the crowd, and to tell the truth, of course, you can just get in contact with us through our website at WeGotEd.com. Good to have you with us on this Friday. Lots of reaction to our story yesterday on Limbaugh. People are somewhat intrigued about the free fall that he seems to be in with radio stations around the country, and it all stems from the Sandra Fluke thing that took place 3 years ago. And the paradigm is shifting about the way people consume their information now. And the social media is playing such a vital role. We are seeing that in the campaigns that are playing out. The spoken word is still very strong. Donald Trump is showing us that. The traditional campaign of press releases just seems so archaic. And it's the quick response. It's the authenticity. And all of these things are coming to light that just never really played a whole lot in previous campaigns. The guys with the most TV ads used to win all these elections. And I just don't buy that anymore. And I think that you're seeing a great pushback across the country in conversation amongst folks. They don't like the Koch brothers. They don't like billionaires. They don't want people owning their process. And I think that this has really played into the success of the Sanders campaign. And in some strange way, it's done the same thing with Trump. Because Trump's not owned by anybody, neither is Sanders. I mean, here we have a guy that's not taking PAC money in Sanders, a guy that's not running negative ads, and he's drawing thousands upon thousands of people. And what is he talking about? Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. You know? He's talking about college tuition. He's talking about corporations paying their fair share. Can I just point out that these are and have been for decades basic, progressive, democratic issues that people have run on in the past, but we've seen such an extreme takeover of the media. We've seen such an extreme takeover of the Republican Party that it's almost as if, gosh, it's really refreshing to hear a guy talk about stuff like this and really zero in on the /fair unfairness that's taken place in America. The have and the have-not, the two Americas, the income inequality. You're either in denial or you're not when it comes to climate change. And so I think this is just unfolding to be in the dog days of summer, a terribly interesting political cycle that we're in, which brings me to our first guest, who I think has always had a pretty doggone good pulse about where Americans are and is a true progressive. Alan Grayson, Congressman from Florida. Alan, good to have you back with us.
Thanks, Ed. It's great to hear your voice, and I want to make it clear I will not be proposing that we issue guns to white fetuses during your show.
And a sense of humor is always good. What are you hearing? I'm curious. You know, the representatives and senators are home now. What are you hearing on the ground? I know that the local news, I'm watching the local news here in the upper Midwest, and nobody's covering, well, Clinton said this, Bernie said that. But if you go out and talk to folks, for instance, my next-door neighbor came over last night with a bottle of wine. He said, what do you think's going on? And obviously he's talking about the Sanders and Clinton battle that's unfolding. What are you hearing on the ground? Do you hear anything? What are people saying to you about what's unfolding in this political cycle, Congressman?
Well, I think most people are still disengaged. It is still too early in the cycle. I think that the hoopla starts to happen about a year from now, probably about a year from now around Labor Day. But there are plenty of people who are political junkies, people who watch the news, whether it's Fox or MSNBC or CNN, And those are people who feel that Bernie is in fact exceeding expectations. I was very surprised to see a poll showing Bernie ahead in New Hampshire. I realized that he has some kind of semi-hometown advantage there. Local boy named Made Good in New England. But I was still surprised to see that he's come so far so quickly. I have to think that they're both benefiting. Both Clinton and Sanders are benefiting from talking about issues that actually relate to people's lives, not the flagrant nonsense that you hear during that Republican debate or whenever these Republican candidates open their jaws.
Do you favor one candidate over another?
Well, I'd like them both. I haven't made any sort of endorsement. I will tell you that Clinton, I think, is running a much more progressive campaign than I saw 7 years ago, and I'm really happy about that.
How so?
I'll give you some examples. First of all, she has made it clear that she thinks it's the government's obligation to register the voters and to make sure that people can vote, not to be some kind of impediment. I think that's an important principle. I think that her her free college plan has a lot of merit to it. One could nitpick certain elements of it, but I think that she's lined up behind the president in trying to make sure that at least we have 2 free years of college and we don't load down students with a huge amount of debt. On economic issues, I think that she's pretty solid. And also, I think in particular, I like what I'm hearing from her in areas of domestic policy generally. I still have some reservations about foreign policy. I think she took some bad votes, as we say, when she was in the Senate, and I am concerned about that. We'll see if that changes over time.
What about trade? You have you put out a fabulous piece on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and she can't even give a straight answer on that. Is that troubling?
No, I tell you, the straight answer I got from her was that she thinks that there ought to be, the answer I got, you can decide for yourself whether it's straight or not, is that there needs to be a timeout on trade agreements. And that's a better position than I'm hearing, certainly from anyone inside the administration or close to the administration. And she's right. They've been horrible for us. That they've been utterly counterproductive. They've gutted the American middle class, as the video demonstrated quite vividly. This is the TradeTreachery.com video, which, by the way, over 1 million people watched on Facebook. Not just heard about it, but actually watched it. About 8 million people have heard about it, and 1 million people have actually taken the time on Facebook or otherwise on YouTube to watch it. And it's encouraging because we want our voters to be well informed. On climate change, that's another example. On climate change, I think she's heading in the right direction. When she talks about it, you actually hear some conviction in her voice about the need to save the planet, that she calls it an existential threat to the planet. And those are words that don't come easily out of anyone's mouth, especially someone whose every word is recorded and analyzed. So
but then she doesn't take a stand on Keystone, which would be the dirtiest oil on the globe coming to market, which would benefit the Koch brothers.
Well, I haven't heard her take a stand on Keystone, so in that sense, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know much about her stance on environmental issues other than the fact that she thinks that global warming is a threat.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge difference between the Democrats and the Republicans when it comes to climate change. That is for sure.
Oh my God! I'm on the science committee. I hear this all the time. They're still running these show hearings, these kangaroo courts, in which they invite in their so-called fake religious experts to say that God doesn't believe in climate change. It's bizarre. It's the strangest thing you've ever seen. And, we try to find constructive ways to get stuff done regardless, but they've got this deep blind spot in them on this issue, thanks to Fox News.
And they say I'm not a scientist. That's their cop-out on this. Yet they disregard 98% of the scientists that are working on this on the globe.
Well, and their own life experience. Look, I went to school in Boston. I went to Harvard, and I'll tell you that when I was growing up, and I went to school in Boston, there was snow on the ground for much of the winter. That never happens anymore. It comes down, it's gone within hours. The same thing is true when I was growing up. I went to in the winter. I used to go to Montreal every year because I have relatives in Montreal, and virtually every time I went up to Montreal, there were huge piles of snow on the ground. Again, quite unusual these days. Yeah. These are things that are visible in our own daily lives. New York is noticeably warmer than it was back then. Even within my 57 years, you can see things changing. I think Florida's warmer than it was when I moved down here 20 years ago.
Yeah. Congressman Alan Grayson of Florida with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. All right, now I know that this is a dog and pony show over on the Republican side, and you and I think many others use it for entertainment. What do you make of Trump? Why is he where he is in the polls? What does he have that the other candidates don't have from your perspective? And being a Florida guy, what's happened to Jeb Bush?
Well, the thing about Trump is that he's not boring. People who are immersed in this every day, you and I and other people, don't realize the utter tedium that other people experience when they're listening to most elected officials. And even when they're listening to cable news, it's just really, really boring. Where's the music?
Yeah.
Where is the thing that engages your soul? Not just your verbal facility. Where is that? And the reason and a lot of what Trump says is utter nonsense. It's utter flagrant nonsense. But at least you have to kind of think about it a little bit, and it sounds like it's fun. He's entertaining people in a way that's gone from politics. It used to be that. This is going back, 80 or even 100 years. But here in Florida, it used to be that when there was a political campaign going on, it was like a show. You'd have your jugglers, you'd have your singers, your banjo players, and you'd have your speaker who happened to be the candidate. And that's not a bad way to do it. It's still that way in many Latin American countries. It's a show, and Trump is, in his own strange way, and probably quite unconsciously, I'm sure, trying to bring back the sort of theatrical element to campaigning, which has been extracted from it by the fact that most politicians are incredibly boring.
That's a great take, and I think that Jeb Bush is boring. Whereas,
oh my God, boring and frankly not that intelligent either. It's kind of strange to see him fishing around for words, trying to say the right thing, trying to make sure he's not saying the wrong thing, moving his hands the way his brother did. It's it's like he's like a fifth generation bad carbon copy of his brother.
Is there a sleeper in the crowd, you think?
No, I think basically what you see is what you get. They all have their chimes, and they're just ringing their chimes, and I don't know what's going to happen. I see two scenarios here that seem to be more likely than the million other possibilities. One scenario is that Trump might actually be able to hold on to this for a while, and no anti-Trump will emerge. So, I mean, it's August. We'll get all the way to January, and the situation might be what it is now. Maybe not. If it is what it is now, then the question is there someone out of these other 15 of them who's going to be number 2 in Iowa, number 2 in New Hampshire, number 2 in South Carolina, number 2 in Nevada, and will emerge as the anti-Trump and consolidate the normal vote, the people who don't vote on the basis of nonsense and how much of a misogynist you are. They'll give you your vote if you're the biggest misogynist. That's the Trump vote, basically.
All right, a very heady subject now, and we'll finish on this. The Iranian nuclear deal.
Yeah.
We're the only country that's having this heated debate. Everybody else is on board. There are some out there that think that there are enough votes in the Senate to defeat this. Your pulse, and where do we go if it does not pass the Congress?
Well, the way this has been set up, and I don't like the way this has been set up because I think it's fake. I think it's a treaty, and it ought to be voted on by the Senate with a 2/3 majority requirement under the Constitution. But that's my take on it. But the way it's been set up, the president, there's going to be a motion of disapproval. That's something that doesn't exist under the Constitution, and I don't like it. I don't like the way we're doing this. But there's going to be a motion of disapproval. The motion of disapproval will have to pass the House and the Senate in order to be sent to the president. Pretty clear that it's going to pass both the House and the Senate and be sent to the president. Also clear the president will veto it. It probably only is like his third veto in 7 years. There's been very, very few vetoes so far. Yeah. And then he'll send it back, and then we'll see whether the veto will be sustained or overridden. I would be very, very surprised. to see the president's veto overridden, just because, one would think the president could pull together 34 senators or 145 members of Congress. Those are pretty low numbers when you're sitting president of the United States, and you're in charge of our military and, by implication, our foreign policy. So I think very likely we'll see a resolution to disapproval pass. We'll see the president veto it. More likely than not, the veto will be sustained and the agreement will go ahead.
How much of an effect do you think Charles Schumer's position against this Iranian deal, what kind of effect is that going to have, if any, on any of the lawmakers and the process?
Well, the president can afford to lose only 13 Democrats in order to have his veto sustained in the Senate, and there's one of them. I guess Schumer has to decide if he's really going to be a party leader or just go ahead and do his own thing, because the indication from that is that he just wants to go ahead and do his own thing.
Yeah,
you can't do both. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi's a great leader, but she's never going to be on the wrong side of a major caucus issue like that, where 85% of her caucus is on one side and 15% on the other side. Sometimes you have to go with your people, and Schumer is clearly going to be on the wrong side of that issue in terms of where most of the Democratic senators are going to be. It's clear that most Democratic senators are going to back the president.
Yet there's polling out there across the country showing that the American people don't want it.
Don't want the deal?
Yeah.
It's not a great deal. There's some terrible flaws in it. It clearly, it's very likely that it will increase terrorism, for one thing. The president didn't try to accomplish a lot of things that people thought were very important. Iran gets to keep its intercontinental ballistic missile program. It's not even part of the deal. Iran will get a large amount of money, which it might get anyway. If the deal doesn't go through, it might get that money anyway, but it's going to get a very large amount of money that's been frozen in various banks in various countries. That money will go to Iran. The fact that the Iranians won't be in any way constrained by this deal in order to stop backing terrorism is very troublesome. The fact that they can get the money and then renege on the deal 2 years down the line and they still have the money is troublesome to a lot of people. There are good things about the deal too. I don't want to sound like I'm one-sided about this. I'm not. Yeah. But I think that there are legitimate criticisms. The odd thing about it, first of all, Ed, is that people say people on each side believe they're totally correct, and that the other side is an idiot. This is like one of the most polarized situations I've ever seen in my entire life politically. Everybody's convinced that they're right, whichever side they're on. The
thing that makes me skeptical is that, and I think we should do it, because if the intel is correct and they're months away from a nuclear capability, we just can't let that happen. We'll have to do this deal and then come back with Plan B to avert a problem down the road. But I know how the administration lies. They lied about trade.
Syria was major lies. Yeah,
what makes me believe Obama on this deal when I know damn well he's allowed his administration to go out and say things about the Trans-Pacific Partnership that simply are not true?
Well, that's a fair statement and a fair reservation. Here's an interesting fact. Let's talk about what each side is saying, what will happen if the deal is rejected by Congress. If you're talking to the administration, they say if the deal is rejected, Iran will leap toward the bomb. The sanctions will fall apart immediately. They'll get their $50-odd billion of frozen assets, and they'll back terrorism to the hilt because we'll be putting the hardliners in charge, having discredited the ones who actually want to deal with us and reach some kind of accommodation. That's what the administration is saying happens if the deal falls through. The other side is saying, and when I say the other side, I mean the Israelis, AIPAC, people on the other side, some Republicans. The other side is saying that if the deal falls through, the Iranians will adhere to it anyway, that they won't try to get a bomb, and that the sanctions somehow will remain in place because everyone will fear that the United States will come down on them hard for violating the sanctions, even though we've rejected the deal, which is the basis for the sanctions in the first place. So, clearly one side or the other is not just wrong, but horribly wrong, terribly wrong, to the point where, world security is at risk, depending upon who's right and who's wrong.
Alan Grayson, Congressman from Florida, good friend of ours. Great to have you with us, Alan. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Ed. You are one of the great voices of America, and I really enjoy listening to you.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production. Lionel joins us when we come back. Comic relief on this Friday. Is there anybody out there that wants to see Donald Trump prepare his hair in the morning? Take from Lionel when we come back. Stay with us. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com, www.biogreenclean, and order today.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast and tell us how we're doing. More details at wegoted.com.
WeGotEd.com, rawstory.com, ringofireradio.com is where you can get this production every day. Thanks for the listen. Thanks for the download. Lionel joins us, talk radio veteran, New York television, legal analyst, and good friend. Oh, gosh, there's so much material here. Where do we start?
At the beginning.
Okay, we could do that. What does Donald Trump look like when his hair's not all spooled around his head? What do you think he really looks like?
By the way, if you are wasting any time talking about Donald Trump's hair, you're missing the point. We did the same thing with Rudy Giuliani's comb over. We do the same thing with, if you have, not you, mind you, but if you have absolutely no idea of the juggernaut that this man is about, then talk about his hair. The man could shave it. He could dye his head purple. It doesn't matter. Now, he's a juggernaut.
He's a New York juggernaut.
No, he's a national juggernaut. He's a national juggernaut. And Ed, as with other trends that I don't understand, as with other things in music and forms and poetry and TV shows and fads and the pet rock and things that I don't get, I accept it, even though I don't particularly, like it. I will tell you this, believe it or not, listen to what he says about Putin, listen to what he says about international affairs, and Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul are spot on. There was an old expression years ago, right? There was a show called SCTV, Second City Television. And I think it was the greatest comedy ensemble. SNL, on its best day, couldn't do it. And one of their characters was running for mayor. And the motto was, Vic Hedges, sure he's crazy, but what if he's right? Well, Donald Trump, to an extent, for some reason or another, he's in his own gravity wave, his own gravity sphere. If you and I said what he said, we would be indicted, we would be imprisoned, we would be banished. He loves it. I thought, this Megyn Kelly blood reference. No, it's the opposite. The man could do, for whatever reason, and it's not up to me to figure out why, but what he's going to do, you do know. Yeah. He's going to go independent. He talked to Bill Clinton. I mean, Hillary is thinking if she has any shot, or the Democrats, yes, but if he goes third party, if he pulls a Perot, because they are just insulting him. Now, it depends on what the backroom deal is. What do you think happens when Ailes called him up? Wouldn't you have loved to have heard that call?
Well, I've thought about that. And if I'm Megyn Kelly's agent, I'm pissed off. I mean, Roger Ailes, my client, goes out in a debate and asks a freewheeling question that arguably many Americans want to hear an answer to, and you end up apologizing to the candidate, and you end up putting my client, my anchor, in an untenable position, and she's a loser in all of this. How the hell can that be? Why didn't Roger Ailes say, Donald, if you don't like the questions, maybe you shouldn't show up next time around?
I love you to death, but first of all, that's not true. Megyn Kelly is red hot, white hot. She's got so many deals in the offing, it doesn't matter. You see, Ed, in our culture, and you know this, I've known you for years, the difference between fame and infamy is dissolved. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what you say. Jon Stewart, as an example, has said some of the stuff which I think if my son said this in a high school class, if my daughter said it, I would be furious as being vile and coarse but he is heralded as a genius, or his writers that is. So we're in a different world today. No, what happened was, listen, Ed, professional wrestling, it's a work. When Bret Baer, when Bret Baer right off the bat says, first, before we start, Mr. Trump, would you answer this question? Would you pledge now that you won't go third party? That's it right there. Forget what Megyn said. I thought what Megyn said was really good. And by the way, Trump could have redeemed himself. Remember, Trump's blood comment, listen to me, it sounds like a sequel to a bad horror movie. His blood comment came with Don Lemon the next day. And he could have handled it better. And just when you think he's done, just when you think, all right, that did it. Now, if he were to make, let's say, a racial comment, an LGBT comment, I don't really know about that. Yeah. But irrespective, we have to sit back. Now, what he is doing is he is forcing Reince Priebus and other people to say, holy God, what do we do now? Jeb Bush is saying, excuse me, I'm the front runner, I'm the heir apparent, I'm the ruling class favorite. What are you guys doing? Remember me? So in the middle of this, believe me, Ailes wins no matter what. But Priebus is worried. Now, let's talk about, and Ed, for the first time, because I am a political atheist, I'm independent. I always vote for myself when it comes to every election for president. I really do. I write my name in because I know what I'm going to do. Hillary is toast. She's finished. She's through. Ed,
what? You're saying what? Hillary done?
Hillary has been dead, through, finished, toast, Elvis, since the beginning. I have said this. It's always an outlier.
So you think Bernie's going to get the nomination?
No. It's going to be somebody like Dukakis in the past, and this guy named Clinton, and this guy named Carter, and this guy named Obama. Look at the history. But I will say something about Bernie, and I think this is so terrific. The country benefits, Edwin. We have a two-party system. And Bernie Sanders is the only person who is reintroducing America to what the foundations of the actual, let's say, FDR, post-FDR,
absolutely. No, he's brilliant on the basics, no doubt.
And what he is doing is, and thank God he is reminding people, because Hillary Clinton is a warmongering Wall Street shill. She is as Democrat as I'm Eleanor Roosevelt. She has always been like that. And what's interesting right now is, it's weird. There are some people, Ed, who just seem to get away with murder. Kind of like Donald Trump. Bill had that. He was born with that Kevlar, that Teflon on the epidermis. Nothing stuck. Whatever you did to him, it doesn't matter. It makes him stronger. Hillary never understood this.
So Trump gets the nomination as you see it right now?
Absolutely not. He's going to go. He has to go third party. There's no way. Now, imagine this backroom deal. I want you to cue the Godfather theme. I want you to imagine very dark, and somebody says, "Donald, listen." I can't do the Godfather thing, but I know
sure you
this
can.
started off as
Take a stab at it. You sure you can?
Donald, I know. Celeste's a pimp. Now, I know, Donald, you started off kind of as a quirk. I know what you were doing. You've made your name and your money and your fortune on your name and your brand. And just like Alan Keyes and Gary Bauer and all these other people, you want to stay in the mix. I understand it. Well, lo and behold, something happened. You blew up and you took off. Now, Donald, you know and I know that you are not going to destroy the Republicans. Do you know what we can do to you? Do you have any idea of what can happen if you lose us as your friend? Now, What you can do later on is you've got to ask yourself a real important question. What's it going to be in the long run? You can sit back and you can do the right thing, Donald, by saying, listen, I've thought this thing over, but in my heart, I'm not a Democrat.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
closer. I kind of like the way Rand Paul kind of holds his nose theoretically and says, all right, if this is the best. Ron Paul, too. All right, I'll do my best because Hillary. That's the thing. But here is the thing that amazes me, in addition to all this. You know, Ed, we live in a very precarious, and by the way, listening to Grayson was terrific. We live in a very, very precarious, a very scary world. There's a lot of stuff going on right now with these new cottonmouths. Forget the chicken hawks, but Senator Cotton, these guys who want to go out and they want to stick their thumb in Putin's eye, and they love to mix it up. And you've got the Kagans and the Newlands, and you've got these weird Institute of War and all of these weird think tanks, and you've got a lot of people rattling the sabers who make the old neocons look like, Ramsey Clark in comparison. What's scary to me is that we're not talking about that. We're not talking about your children and your grandchildren in the future and monetary systems and collapses and very serious world of surveillance and war. And we're talking about things that are not even, put it this way, Donald Trump, his information, you don't even need a bumper sticker. You could just have a lapel pin. There's no message.
He is a lapel pin when it comes to that.
But there's no message.
I know it. That is, and we've spoken with the Heritage Foundation people. They say the same thing. There's just no there outside of the media glitz, the moxie, and how to garnish all the attention.
It's going to be Jeb Bush, though. By the way, Jeb Bush, and watch this, so? Joe Biden. Watch Uncle Joe Biden.
All right.
Watch this. Now, Ed, it's going to be Joe Biden. I'm telling you right now. And by the way, Lizzie Warren, remember when she said, I'm not going to run? That's as long as Hillary was there.
All right.
Hillary's
well, then we got a lot of big stories coming up. Lionel, always good to visit with you. I appreciate your time. We'll do it again. Great friend and
anytime, my buddy.
Extraordinary talent. Talk radio veteran and New York television legal analyst Lionel with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Now this. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Listen to the Ring of Fire weekends on radio stations across the country. Get more information and the news of the day at ringofireradio.com.
Like us on Facebook at We Got Ed, and of course our website WeGotEd.com, rawstory.com, and ringofireradio.com. Have a great weekend. I'm back with you on Monday. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary.